Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the Column EDC Coffee Chat, Coffee with Colleen. We are really excited to have Danny Steiger here joining us today. He is the CEO of an incredibly important business in Column County and Port Angeles in particular. They are growing and expanding, and they have a really unique business model that is incredibly advantageous to the employees and to our community as a whole, keeping the profits and everything locally. So with that, I am going, quickly, if you'll try to keep yourself on mute so we don't pick up background noises. And if you have questions, you'd like me to ask them, put them in the chat, or go ahead and raise your hand. Danny, it's okay if it's interactive, I assume. We like
Absolutely.
to keep it that way and just very casual. So with that, I will let you take it away. Thanks so much for joining us and being a part of Column EDC.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Colleen. I'll get the screen share going here just a moment. All right, can you all see my screen there?
You sure can.
Perfect. All right, well, thank you again, Colleen. I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to share a little bit about the company and about the ESOP business structure and the impacts that has on the community. A few little quick housekeeping things. This is really early to talk for 40 minutes straight, so forgive the morning voice here, but we'll warm up. And like Colleen said, I welcome any questions. I had clocked this presentation. She told me 40 minutes, and I was at 35 last night, and I thought I was pretty golden, and this morning it was about 25. So I'm going to slow myself down a little bit. Please, I welcome any questions you have throughout the presentation or at the end as well. So as Colleen said, I'm Danny Steiger. I've been with Lumber Traders, which is Hartnagel Building Supply and Angeles Millwork. I'll get into that in a minute, for about 7 years. I've been in the building industry for 23 years, started when I was 18 up in Linden, Washington. And I've been CEO for 5 years. So a lot of time spent in this industry, very fortunate to have some amazing opportunities, some amazing mentors that helped me get here, and very proud to be a part of this company. So diving in, just a little agenda. Who is Lumber Traders? Talk about that. What is an ESOP anyway? If you're like me, before I started here, I had no idea what an ESOP was. How we became an ESOP, how that creates economic security in our community. We'll talk about retirement and why that matters, how we're very mission oriented. A little plug for why shopping local matters. Probably preaching to the choir on this one, but I think it bears repeating. A little bit of a talk about our future, and then definitely open it up for questions. So who is Lumber Traders? A lot of people aren't familiar. What is Lumber Traders? There's not a building with a sign on it that says Lumber Traders. That is simply the parent company of Angeles Millwork and Hartnagel Building Supply. We've also recently added Angeles Rentals, Equipment and Supply, and Hartnagel Glassworks as well. So when I say Lumber Traders, I mean all the companies overall. We've been in our community here for 118 years. Angeles Millwork was established in 1906. Hartnagel Building Supply is the younger sibling, coming around in 1960. Those two businesses operated separately for many years, and in 1984, Arnold and Debbie Schouten unified them under Lumber Traders Incorporated. Then in 2022, we added our glasswork department at Hartnagel, and just this year launched Angeles Rental Equipment and Supply. That's the old Sears building that we took over and remodeled right on Lincoln Street. And I'll kind of get into some details about those departments and divisions as well. So what is an ESOP? That was one of the early questions when I was interviewed for this position. And they said, are you familiar with ESOPs? And I said, until today, I had never heard that word. So it is probably one of the best kept secrets in our economy. It has a lot of benefits for the employees, for the communities. That's pretty much what this whole talk is about. So I'm excited to share that. But if you don't know or aren't familiar, totally get it. That's where I was. So ESOP just stands for Employee Stock Ownership Plan. It's basically a retirement plan that allows employees to own part or all of the company. Employees receive company stock over time, usually based on how long they work for the company or their percentage of payroll. And the stock grows tax-free until it's paid out. So let's get into
Quick
it.
question.
Yes.
Back to the last slide. I noticed that you've got Angelus Rentals established in 1906, but then Hartnagel Glassworks established 2022. Why did you guys choose that?
So 1906 for Angelus Millwork and Lumber, and then 2022. So I'll talk about the Glassworks department specifically because it's a pretty exciting department for us. But I'll keep you waiting if that's okay.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate the question. So how does an ESOP function? It is considered a retirement plan. ESOP is a free benefit to the employees. So when we talk about retirement, most people are familiar with 401ks, things where employees are putting money in. Maybe there's an employer match, but it does require them to put something in to get this benefit. So that's the big difference here. The ESOP is a free benefit just for employees working for the company. The shares are privately held, so they can't be traded or sold. It is a retirement plan. There are a few mechanisms. If an employee leaves the company, there's a 5-year waiting period, and then we pay them out for their shares over the course of the next 5 years. And when employees retire with the company, they're paid out over the course of 5 years. And that really just helps us manage our liabilities and see how much we're going to have to be paying out of the company. So like I mentioned, when an employee leaves the company, their shares are repurchased and then that following year reallocated to the current employees. Employees receive shares based on their percentage of payroll. So if you were an employee here and you were 5% of the payroll, you get 5% of the shares that are coming back into the plan. And then the share value is assessed annually by an outside valuator. So essentially, as the company becomes more valuable, that share price goes up. We don't do this internally and make up a value. This is a private company that comes in, audits our books, has about a 4-hour meeting with me to go over everything that we've been working on in the business, then looks at other comps in the industry, other businesses that have sold in the last 12 months or so to kind of get a value for what that is. The big takeaway here is that we build wealth for our employees and community, not for out-of-town corporations. This is going right back into our employees' retirement. So just a little story how we became an ESOP. As I mentioned, Angelus Millwork and Hartnagel Building Supply have been established in the building supply business in Port Angeles since 1906 and 1960. The stores went through multiple owners and changes until Arnold and Debbie Schouten took full control in 1984 and established Lumber Traders as the parent company of the stores. Arnold held the position of CEO, while Debbie maintained the Secretary Treasury position. Both were instrumental in the daily management and success of both locations until 2004. So in the early 2000s, the Schoutens were starting to think about retirement, and their desire was to sell Lumber Traders to a buyer who would keep it in the area and retain many of the long-term employees. Unfortunately, a majority of potential buyers were trending toward liquidating one of the companies or severely cutting operations. This would have had a major impact on the community and the ability to get building materials in Port Angeles. More importantly to the Schoutens was the risk to current employees and their reliance on Lumber Traders as their place of employment. So through much deliberation, the Schoutens decided that the best choice would be to sell the company to the current and future employees. Through a loan to the Lumber Traders Trust, the companies were purchased and shares were distributed to the employees, establishing Lumber Traders as a 100% employee-owned company. And if I'm not mistaken, I do believe it was the first ESOP on the peninsula as well.
Are there others?
I've heard there are a couple. I couldn't name them, honestly. This really is kind of one of the best kept secrets in our economy, like I said, and it's a shame. I wish more people knew about this because it really is incredible.
Yeah, I don't know another.
Yeah, I couldn't name them, like I said. There are some big ones. Winco is actually an ESOP. Bob's Red Mill, you see their products in the grocery store. They're also an ESOP. So there are some pretty big ESOPs out there. So how does this create economic security? That's what we're talking about. As employees gain shares, the share value also hopefully increases. Obviously, it depends on the value of the company and the management of the company. I like to share charts with our employees and I say, it did go down when we had the recession and it came back up. And if share value keeps going down, I won't be the one telling you about it for very long. But no, thankfully, we've got an incredible management team and a great business. So we've had really good success. So this benefit, while it starts out slowly, it quickly becomes a large benefit. And I want to take just a couple minutes on this graph because there's actually a lot of information in here. This is a real world example, an employee who was hired in 2015 at a very fairly low wage at $16 an hour. The dark blue on the graph is what that person's compensation was, and that slowly gained throughout the years, getting to $20 in 2023. So the first 2 years, they're getting into the ESOP, so they don't get any ESOP benefits. They're qualifying for the plan. In 2017, they get into the plan, excuse me, and that first year, they got $6,600 in their ESOP retirement funds. And if we look at that as a percentage of payroll, again, we're comparing to something like a 401k where there's an employer match or something like that, maybe 4%. This was 16% of the wages they earned, and that's a free benefit. And I like to equate it to dollars per hour. That's over $3 an hour in a benefit for retirement. And you can see from there, it just kept growing. And in 2020, as much as I don't want to relive that year, that was rough. In the building industry, it was actually very profitable. A lot of people had a lot more time on their hands. A lot of people were building decks, putting in fences, all these sorts of things. So the business did really well. And as a result, we were able to turn that back to the employees in their shares. So in 2020, this employee who made $39,000 that year got almost $24,000 in additional ESOP benefits. So that's new shares they got plus the increase in share value for all the other shares that they held. That's 58% of their income paid in a retirement benefit, $11.53 an hour. And you can see, obviously, it kind of goes up and down, but the trend keeps climbing there.
So for a 9-year period, they got about 117,000 that is now available for them in retirement funds.
Correct.
That's good. It's great.
This is basically that same graph, but this adds their wages plus their ESOP benefit. So you can see going from just over 30,000 to about 65,000 over 9 years. That's a 98.5% increase in total compensation. Now, again, I want to be clear, it's a retirement benefit, right? This isn't money that's in their hands, but this is money they didn't have to take out of their paycheck to put into retirement. So that number is huge.
And they can still do a Roth or something if they want to, in addition to this.
Yes, absolutely. And I do encourage our employees, this can be a huge benefit. We should really all be saving for retirement. And it's very challenging to be able to afford that. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I guess maybe I'll jump ahead. The price of housing, the price of food, all these things have put tremendous pressure on employees. And it's tough when you've got to put food on the table for your family. You've got to pay rent or mortgages with higher interest rates to be able to pull money out of those funds and put it into retirement. Again, I do encourage, if they have another Roth or something like that, they should hopefully be doing something like that. But this gives an additional safety net that's not coming out of their regular spending.
So Danny, there's a question in the chat from Michael. It says, does the compensation graph include healthcare benefits, et cetera? Is it just salary?
Just pre-tax salary plus the ESOP, no additional benefits factored in there. And there certainly are, obviously, health insurance that we provide, and PTO, sick, all those sorts of things are in addition. Good
and
question.
Jim asks, how is the benefit protected?
Good question. So it is all tied to the business, right? So if the business succeeds, it's great for the employees. If the business does not succeed, it's not good for the employees. And we take that very, very seriously. This is people's retirement. This is not a game that we're playing. This is a big deal. So we are fairly conservative when it comes to our finances and things like that, because we know that we are safeguarding their future. There are some things, once an employee gets to age 55, they can potentially diversify their account. Over the next 5 years, they can pull out up to 25% of their balance and roll it over into a separate retirement account. Or in some cases, pull some money out. We had an employee of that age who had some really big medical bills, and he was able to pull some out to pay for those medical bills. And then after your 5th year, you can diversify an additional 25%, so up to 50%. So as employees get closer to retirement age, they don't have to have all their eggs in one basket. They can kind of diversify that out and then protect that as well. That being said, with our past 10 years or so, it's been very beneficial for employees who have had company shares as well. Great question.
Steve, Steve, do you want to ask your questions? He's got 3 in the chat here.
No, I was just trying to get level set here and understanding how many employees do you guys employ, and what's the average turnover of that employee base, and what's the average tenure? Do you got a lot of people that are there for a decade plus kind of thing?
We've got a good amount of tenured employees. We have right about 70 employees right now. That's my next slide there. Since 2019, we've added 12 full-time positions to the company here. We've got a number of employees that have been with the company 20 plus years. We've got 2 that have been with the company 30 years. Their ESOPs definitely are looking very healthy. Turnover, you know, at the more entry-level positions, we have a higher turnover rate. As we've made some much-needed changes in the company, we've had a little bit more. But I got to be honest, every key employee that we've brought in recently has really helped secure the company and our future. I'm really happy with our management team. Overall, it's a pretty young management team, all right about in their 40s. So we have a lot of runway ahead of us as well. But overall, pretty secure. I can think of 5 employees at Hart & Nagels that have been here more than 20 years. I think most of those actually more than 25 years.
Do you think the ESOP does impact your turnover rate in a positive way?
Yes. In fact, I'll skip ahead just a little bit. Glassworks, it was actually really, really key to us getting that department. And that started with 4 installers who were going to start their own company. And I chatted with them and said, hey, look, it's challenging to start your own company. It's doable, but it's challenging. And I said, what if you came on board here? We've got the administrative backing for you to make sure that you're successful. We have the finances. You can do what you do because you're experts at that. And one of the key factors for getting them to come on board was the ESOP. So they are owners of shares of the entire company, not just the glass department. One of the things that we did was we redid our entire statement to our employees so that they can see not what is this benefit this year, but where are we likely heading? And of course, we can't say for sure what that'll be, but we have a lot of historical data. And that's been key for recruiting new employees. That's actually been key for retaining employees as well, to be able to show them, okay, I get it. You got offered $1 more an hour at this location. At this time, we maybe can or can't match that. But let's look at what this ESOP benefit is. And especially if it's a younger employee, this is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially approaching $1 million. So it's a huge opportunity, and that really does help us retain and recruit employees as well. Any other questions for now? Got them. All right. So I'm talking a lot about retirement, and sometimes it's hard to understand how retirement affects the community overall. And I've got a few quotes here, so bear with me. I think sometimes when you can grab these things out of publications, it can kind of bring clarity. So from the Center for Workforce Inclusion, nearly half of working age adults are not covered by workplace retirement plans, a critical tool in saving for retirement. And inequities in retirement savings persist across income, race, and gender. So there's a huge need for retirement benefits. From Mission Square Retirement, whether due to ongoing expenses like rent or emergency expenditures, such as for a car repair, many fail to contribute anything or as much as they would like toward their retirement savings. In a Research Institute survey on morale and retention from 2022, 77% indicated that their level of debt prevented them from saving more toward their retirement, while 75% indicated that other financial goals were similarly impacting their ability to build retirement savings. Like I mentioned, with so many economic pressures, it's hard for employees to put money away. And frankly, I think our school system needs to do a little better educating students before they get out in the real world how important it is to start saving at a young age. So we really try to create economic understanding in our employees to see the bigger picture and what this is. Almost the last quote. The benefits of sufficient retirement income are far-reaching. Greater financial stability and having basic needs met improves the lives of individuals, families, and communities. Financial stability can also reduce the anxiety that comes from struggling to survive or not having a cushion for emergencies. It leaves more time to spend with loved ones and to participate in the community, all of which contribute to happiness and improved life satisfaction. For communities, this leads to greater economic activity, greater tax revenue, lower levels of crime, and fewer demands on the social safety net, allowing more investment in vital infrastructure, schools, and healthcare. As you can see, it's a huge ripple effect out in our community. And retirement means more than just economic security for the employees. Sometimes it's a legacy. We had it's a beautiful example, but a sad example. An employee just recently passed away from a very brief battle with cancer. It came on very quickly. And he had a daughter in her 20s. He lived in a rental house, didn't have much savings of any kind. And this December, we're going to be paying her out. I think it's close to $225,000 for his ESOP. And that's going to his daughter. And he left her a note saying, I want you to buy a house. No one in their family has been a homeowner for many generations. And she told us that's absolutely what she's doing. And I just think that's such a beautiful thing. You know, again, tragic, but to be able to pass down that gift to change her future and her trajectory forever.
That's great.
So mission oriented. Lumber traders, we consider ourselves very mission oriented. This is my last quote, so just bear with me one last time. This is from Forbes, an article titled Communities Benefit When Employee-Owned Companies Make Them Their Homes. Compared to conventional businesses, employee-owned companies put service to communities on par with their business goals. A recent study sponsored by the employee-owned S Corporations of America found workers at private businesses owned by employee stock ownership plans, or ESOPs, place a higher priority on their company's commitment to corporate social responsibility than employees at non-ESOP companies. Greater than 8 in 10 ESOP employees said it's very important for their companies to invest in the local community, compared to 53% of non-ESOP employees. ESOP employees were twice as likely as non-ESOP employees to say their companies made an effort to provide economic opportunity in the community. So we really take that to heart. And we get involved. We estimate that we have supported close to 50 causes in the last 5 years, totaling approximately $250,000. Notable organizations include 4PA. I think a lot of people on this call know the difference they're making our community, how much better the downtown area looks just with their cleanup efforts. And we're really excited to partner with them on their Touchstone campus. And we're not just getting involved by supporting them, we're also rallying our vendors to also chip in. So far, I think we've got another $7,000 of donated material for this project. So we really go to bat for them. Habitat for Humanity is another one. Workforce housing is a huge issue in our community, and they're really tackling that. They've got close to 100 units that they're going to be doing in the next 10 years. The Lions Club, we donate material and money to them as well. And they have a program where they put in ramps for people who are wheelchair bound or having trouble getting into their homes. Support the NPBA, the North Peninsula Builders Association, and everything they're doing to advocate for the trades. Local schools, every sports team, you know, they need the communities to invest in them. A lot of times there's not that budget in the schools. Ian's Ride, there's so many more. We absolutely love being a part of the community and being a part of the solution. And it's not just money. Our employees serve on tons of local boards with all sorts of different organizations. Habitat for Humanity, North Peninsula Builders Association, Future Builders, City of PA Planning Commission, Dream Playground, Olympic Workforce Development Council, CTE Advisory Board, Western Building Materials Association, Lions Club, and again, we could go on and on. And this is throughout the company. This is not just me. This is other people in our company leadership getting involved. I'm going to put in just a little buying local plug. Obviously, we know that small business is the engine of our local economy. I realize I'm preaching to the choir, and I still think it bears repeating here. You've probably seen this statistic, but 2018 Small Business Economic Impact Study said that for every dollar you spend at small business, 67 cents stays in the local economy. 44 cents goes to the small business owner and employee wages and benefits. So in our case, again, the owner is the employee. So this is all going right back to them. And I like this chart a little bit better. This is a new one that I hadn't seen. And it just shows the difference. When you buy local, if you spend $100, $68 stays in our community. That's paying wages, that's, you know, accountants and other services, sign makers, printing, all these things. When you spend $100 at a non-local business, $57 leaves the local economy. And that's start, think about that. That makes a huge difference. So again, we all know these things, but it really requires purposeful spending, whether that means picking up a novel at Odyssey Books instead of Amazon or choosing a local supplier for your materials. It also requires asking hard questions. Who owns the company? Where do the profits go? How much do they support the local community? And there's a disconnect sometimes where people think, oh, well, I can get things a lot cheaper or better if I go out of the area. But many local companies can provide the goods and services of higher quality and better workmanship at competitive prices than out-of-area companies or corporate owners. And one example I'll share is Renewal by Andersen. You've probably heard their ads. I know they're in our communities here. And on one hand, I love it when a customer comes to our Glassworks department and says, I just got a quote from Renewal by Andersen, because we beat their quotes by 30 to 50%. Same windows, same product, probably a better installation, honestly. We're here in the community, whereas their installers are coming from outside of the community. And at the same time, it kind of infuriates me because they're fleecing our community. They're getting in front of people and pushing high pressure sales at them and charging way more than they should. So this is a passion of mine. That's the perfect example of when that money leaves our community, it's gone. They don't even hire people in our communities. So I'm excited to offer alternatives and better pricing as well. So I mentioned Glassworks. We established it in 2022. As I mentioned, 4 guys joined the team. We hired an additional 2 admin employees who do fantastic work. We've got more than 1,400 satisfied customers just since actually May of 2022. We partnered with the city of PA and the PUD for certified energy efficiency window replacements. And this one department is on track to exceed $2 million this year. So it's been a great success. The staff is fantastic. We could not be more happy with them.
It's terrific.
Then we just launched Angeles Rental Equipment and Supply. That was February of this year. Again, that was the old Sears building right on Lincoln Street. Go out of order a little bit here. We spent about $3 million acquiring the building and all of the renovations, and it needed a little bit of love. It was a little bit dilapidated and needed some repairs and updating. And we are just so proud of the job that our team was able to do and how great that building looks. I just think it really ups the entire neighborhood area there. And then, of course, all the local subcontractors that we hired. J&J Construction did a ton of the work. APS Electrical did a ton of stuff for us. And it goes on and on. So that's, again, staying in our community. And then it's more than just rentals. We have outdoor power equipment, Husqvarna power tools, and tons of hardware as well. So if you haven't been to the location, check it out. It's right next to Safeway. You need some tools or supplies for your construction project, swing on by. And then future acquisitions. You know, we're consistently evaluating adding businesses to our family, you know, securing employee ownership benefits and investing in the communities. And that being said, challenges exist, you know, especially in our industry. There's a lot of consolidation. A lot of big companies are coming in and buying up small businesses. And a lot of them make great promises. But the fact of the matter is, usually layoffs come, and then the profits of that business are leaving the community. And again, there's a misconception that, okay, well, they can probably pay more. That's really not true. We are toe to toe with those guys. We're all working in the same business. We know the business. We can be there. And the benefit that we can provide, I think, is bar none. It does not compare in keeping all of that money in our communities. So
I think we look at that pretty regularly, you know, as new businesses, as when Column EDC, when I think about what we should be doing and recruiting, and we've got maybe some waterfront space as an example, you know, is just getting an outside investor to business to come in. What, you know, look at the Rainier site as example, you know, they aren't cleaning it up. They are from Florida. They're publicly traded, and they, you know, don't have a commitment to the people in this community. And so when you get things set up, I know the city of Sequim is working on that with Seabrook, that, okay, Seabrook's going to do, they're going to build there very likely. And they're looking at a 1% foundation that they will create that will give back to the community, probably in affordable housing. But before you bring an entity in, requiring things like, okay, well, you need to be, you know, we'll do this, but here are all these other things we want you to do if you're going to take this very important property, so that it's not something where the profits all are pulled out, resources used locally, and our community ends up holding the bag in the end.
yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And like you pointed out, these companies usually aren't committed to the community,
Yeah.
right? And obviously every business has a bottom line. We've got to watch out for it. I can't say there have never been layoffs here. You know, when we went through the Great Recession, that was a challenging time. But with the ups and downs, we worked very hard to keep our employees on staff, to keep them going here, because it does impact our community. Everything we do impacts our community. And the more successful the community is, the more successful our business is. It's not a win-lose scenario. It really is a win-win scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And one other note too, when it comes to, you know, Arnold and Debbie are the perfect example, owners who built an incredible business. They were rewarded for that hard work by selling the business, but they also passed on that legacy to the employees to keep that business going, to keep impacting the community in even greater ways. So it's such a win-win for people who may be looking to exit their business. And I should point out too, it's not the structure for everybody. You need generally about 40 employees to make an ESOP work, because for it to work, you need employees cycling out of the company, retiring or leaving, to send those shares back into the company to be reallocated. And there are a lot of companies that are, I don't know what you'd call them, overarching companies, I guess similar to how Lumber Traders is the parent company of 3 small businesses. So there are ESOP companies that are bringing in people under their umbrella to get those benefits to their employees and add them to the pool, which really makes it a more robust system as well.
So,
okay.
Let's see. Deborah had a question back here about why do you think more businesses don't use the ESOP model? And I think one of the big things is there's a lot of upfront costs and to set it up. And so you have to have a minimum amount of revenues and a minimum amount of employees. The companies I've talked to that are experts in this, helping businesses set these up, have said a minimum of 15, but I think 40 is a better number, very likely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also going to put in the chat here that our state now has a new program that is called the Washington Employee Ownership Program. It's overseen by a commission of 11 people, and they've created tax credits. And so there are 3 types of businesses that are employee owned. The most famous that most people know about, if they know about it, is ESOPs, employees stock option program, and ownership program. Yeah. And then there's also though worker co-ops and then employee-owned trusts. And so the state is trying to get more businesses to do what Lumber Traders has done, and that is give ownership to their employees through one of these. If it's a smaller business, you can create a co-op or a employee-owned trust, and the state will give up to $100,000 to a business if they're looking to convert to an ESOP, and up to $25,000 if they're for the costs to convert to a worker co-op or an employee-owned trust. And the state has up to $2 million each year to provide for that. And I don't think they've used all those yet. So there's still funding available. And if you know of any business owners that are interested in converting to a co-op, an employer-owned trust, or an ESOP.
Yeah, and one other point to, I think you said it was Debbie or Deb's question there. Why don't more companies do this? Like you mentioned, the size is a thing. The expense of setting it up is another piece. There's lack of knowledge that this is even an option. So that's a big piece. And I will say that as incredible the benefit as it is, it takes a lot to really do it right. And there's a lot of educating employees, getting them to understand what it is and how it works. And employees, just like anybody, right? We tend to fill in blanks with answers if we're not given them. And I know when I came on board, some people thought that somehow the ESOP was a pyramid scheme for Arnold and Debbie. It was like they don't own any stock. They're still on our board of directors, but that's a volunteer position essentially. And it does take a lot of time and energy to communicate that. And that's where, if you don't communicate that, it's just an expense for the business. You're paying out a lot of money without getting any benefits. But when employees start to understand how it works, it really shifts into that ownership mentality. What they do makes a difference in the business. That makes a difference on the profitability, which adjusts the share price. So it's everybody working to help themselves and help their coworkers as well. And that's where the magic is in the ESOP. But you have to put in the time and energy and the communication to teach people and inform that.
So how many shares are there in Lumber Traders?
Currently, we have 3 million active shares.
3 million. Okay.
Mhm.
Got it. Got it. Let's see. And John asked, have you considered getting into solar? Closest right now is in Port Townsend. I assume solar installation.
That's a good question. I think with the examples of Glasswork and rental, increasing these kind of specialty divisions within our business is a huge avenue to grow. And I know out on the peninsula, we have a lot of gaps in the marketplace as well. Solar is probably not the highest one there, just because when you're working with electrical, that's a really specialty niche area. But I certainly wouldn't say that we wouldn't consider it. You know, as we look to grow, and we very much want to continue growing and pushing the business forward, we want to look at those specialty niche industries as well to add those on.
Great. What about trusses?
A truss plant. That would be very needed in our community.
Yeah.
And I know from talking with a lot of the truss plant manufacturers, labor is one of the most challenging because it's a pretty labor heavy industry, and getting enough employees. Again, I don't think that would be at the top of our list. Probably, honestly, one of the things that we're growing right now is our cabinetry department, and kind of expanding in that area. But again, we want to keep growing, and we'll constantly look at evaluating these things.
Kelly Fox had talked about a truss plant. They own, I guess, out in Hadlock, the Carl's building supply there. Now, of course, Thomas, but they said if they bought one more, they would build a truss plant out here because the transportation is so expensive for them. So if you could get them to buy your trusses, you could get a contract with them.
There we go. That would
Yeah.
be a delicious bit of irony, I suppose.
Uh-huh. Yeah. All right. And so Steve says, we all like supporting local companies in general. PA has been mostly against big box retailers. I'm curious how significant the hit was to lumber traders when Home Depot opened in Sequim in 2003.
Oh boy, specifically answering that, I would have a difficult time because I was not here at that time. I do know that it's not as difficult to compete with Home Depot as people might think. They spend a lot of money on advertising, so they're obviously top of the mind for a lot of people. But if you've ever tried to get help at a Home Depot on a project and you've tried chasing people down the aisle, and then contrast that with coming into a local building supplier, it is a night and day difference. And that's something I'm passionate about. Our employees want to help people. I love the sense of community here, the contractors that we see every single day coming in. And I really think that contractors are generally the salt of the earth people. They're great people. And we can be very, very price competitive with Home Depot. They've got a few items that they just mark down as loss leaders, and that's a challenge to deal with. But other than that, if you looked at a whole house package from us versus them, we're probably cheaper. And the quality of materials is dramatically different. The quality of lumber, the quality of internal parts on even things like faucets and things like that. And it is a challenge to educate consumers on that, because it's again, they spend a lot of money on advertising. But when the rubber meets the road, you know, we just had a customer who was looking at cabinets. We beat Home Depot by 10% on equivalent or better products. So it's a challenge, but honestly, competition keeps pushing you, right? You can't get complacent. So I wouldn't love it if one opened up here in Port Angeles, and it also wouldn't be the end of the world. We keep pushing forward with our customer service, our customer focused mentality.
I recently received a data download from Department of Revenue of all businesses in Clallam County. And there are 6,991 different UBI numbers, so different businesses in Clallam. And what I found, and so it also is a list by the NAICS code, the North American Industry Classification System. So what was the type of business? And I found it fascinating that 15% of our businesses were in the construction industry. So it's a huge portion of our economy is construction based.
Absolutely. And frankly, there's a need for a lot more in our communities. You know, there's a need for the people to get the projects done. There's a huge need for housing in our community, affordable housing as well. And that's not an easy topic. We could probably have a whole meeting on that and not scratch the surface, but the need is there.
It absolutely is. Yep. Well, does anybody have any further questions for Danny or comments? Let's see, Marianne, any thoughts, plans to expand agricultural rental equipment at Angelus Rentals?
Great question. We did partner with the Clallam County Conservation District, and we got a manure spreader that people can rent. They subsidize that rate, so it's very, very competitive rate for people with small farms who can't afford to buy a whole spreader. We've also got the tractor to run it as well if they don't have a tractor. And this was just kind of a little pilot project with them. We very much would like to partner with them and keep growing that fleet, because we do have a lot of very small farms in the area. And I think those are gaining economic viability. The desire is there for locally sourced foods. So I would absolutely love to keep going down that path and working with them. So yes, that is on the roadmap and the plan.
Great. All right. Danny, do you have any job openings today?
Oh boy. I think we are looking for an installer in our glass department right now. We are looking for another rental associate at our rental center there, help with counter sales and showing people how to use the equipment. We actually just had hired a driver after the McKinley closure, and unfortunately he left us, but we had another employee who wanted the chance to advance in the company And he went out on his own and got a grant for CDL driver school. And he graduates the end of this month. So it's kind of perfect timing that he's stepping into that. But I think we do have another position in the yard. So again, we like to try to promote from within, especially if someone's going to show the initiative and run with something like that. And I think we are also looking for another admin assistant here at Hart Nagel. So we've got some openings, definitely.
Great. Mitch.
Not to make you toot your own horn, Danny, but could you tell us a little bit more about your 40 under 40 accomplishment that you achieved?
Yeah, I was very honored. I snuck in under the wire. Last year, the deadline was you had to be 39 on April 30th, and I turned 40 on May 4th. So I just snuck in there, but was very honored to receive that. And, you know, part of that is just the years in the industry and the experience, and also trying to get involved. I really made a conscious effort. It's really easy to devolve into complaining about things we see wrong in our community or wrong in our industry. And I said, I'm not going to complain about things I'm not willing to get involved in and step up and try to be a part of the solution. And not that I have all the solutions by any stretch of the imagination, but being willing to get out there and give back and try to be a part of that, I think is a big deal. And I think that's what we need in our communities. So I really tried to embody that, and was just really honored that they would add me to their list of the 40 under 40 there.
And it's Pro Builder Media. That's their list. And yeah, it's really cool. Congrats, Danny.
Thank you. And that's a nationwide publication. So it was quite the honor. I've got a little plaque here. I don't have too many plaques, but I'm pretty proud of that one. So thank you, Mitch. I appreciate that.
Great. And Stephen.
Yeah, Danny, great presentation. Really appreciate you taking the time today. You know, I've been trying to study PA's economy that struggled over the last 20 years or so, and we've seen recent layoffs with McKinley and First Fed and some of our retailers. It sounds like you guys might be a pretty good barometer for the health of our community and the people that are investing in our community. You talked a little bit about employees being up, I guess, 25% or so versus pre-pandemic. Is that similar in revenues and profits for your business as well? You guys have kind of grown 25% since pre-pandemic?
Oh, since pre-pandemic, I
29.
want to say we've probably been closer to 30% increase.
Excellent.
Things have slowed down. You know, we're probably down about 5%, honestly. And part of that is, well, one, lumber prices were astronomical and kind of ridiculous, frankly, during the pandemic. And it's easy to increase revenues when your products just get much more expensive. Those things have come down to less than half of their highs, and we're still only down about 5%, which is pretty darn good. And we've got some pathways moving forward. So, you know, would I like to be in the green every single year? Of course, but that's part of the business cycle, and it's adjusting to those things. So, yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, we sure do appreciate you coming on board and sharing a bit about Lumber Traders and all the business lines that you have. We really do appreciate locally owned companies. It's so important to the general economy of our county. So thanks for all you do and the investments and the innovation that you produce through your company. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And just one last quick note. If anybody has any questions about ESOP, especially, I'm always game to talk about this. So my email was in that last slide, just dannys@lumbertraders.com. Happy to chat. And also, I do want to thank the EDC for the work that you're doing in our communities. And, you know, most of the people on this call are actively engaged in trying to improve things around here. So I appreciate everyone's effort. It really is a community. We have to band together as a community to keep pushing our community forward.
Yep. Absolutely. Oh, I see James has a question. Go ahead, James.
Okay, so first of all, Danny, I'm really glad you're on the Planning Commission. That chair I used to have is very well warmed with you being there. I also want the community to know that Danny's involved in the county's housing meetings on the first Friday of the month. So it's been really good to see your participation on maybe we don't move forward, but it's glad to see you're pushing the stone.
Sometimes progress is slow, but we got to just keep pushing it. Thank you, James. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone and enjoy your Wednesday. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.